Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 this Wednesday morning. Thanks for tuning in here. Coming up in 30 minutes, syndicated columnist Cal Thomas. At 7:05, Tim Graham of Newsbusters. At 8:05, Phil Wegman, Real Clear Politics. And at 8:35, Josh Kroshauer, Jewish Insider. It's Larry O'Connor on this O'Connor and Company with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Well, we don't have a whole lot more to say about Tim Walz.
Oh, right.
I mean, we might. But then there's the top of the ticket, Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris, of course, refuses to do any interviews. And by the way, at this point, I'm like, why should she? It's not like the media. If the media is not upset about it, CBS isn't upset. If Time Magazine isn't upset, why should I be upset?
Well, you're right, and it'll just be a, what did you call it, a full body massage?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah, I mean.
Pretty much. How does it feel to be such a transcendent figure in American politics? Right. Take your time.
Take your time.
But now we found out some, I don't know, does this fall under the category of misinformation or disinformation or election meddling? The Harris campaign is editing news headlines and descriptions within the Google search ad parameters. Now, let me explain. When you place ads in Google search ads, you've seen this. When you go to Google something, let's say you're looking for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump for that matter, because these days when you Google Donald Trump, you get nothing but Kamala Harris results.
Right.
And as if Google wasn't already stacked in favor of Kamala Harris, they're trying to game the system and manipulate it even more now. If you search Kamala Harris, the Harris campaign can set up results for whatever you're advertising to come up as some of the first things you see. And it says ad on it, right?
Right.
But it says it in very small letters. Like sometimes I'll Google something, like I'm looking for a new lawnmower bag or something, right?
Right.
And your first 5 results are going to be companies that are selling lawnmower bags. And sometimes you'll just click on it and you'll get what you need and you're fine. You don't care paying, clicking on an advertising. That's how Google makes money. So they're now placing ads, the Kamala Harris campaign is, and they're utilizing and manipulating news articles from actual outlets like AP or Reuters or USA Today. And they're placing them within the ad to make it look like these are friendly articles written by these news agencies supporting the search results. So in other words, let's say you're searching Tim Walz military record, right? Tim Walz military record. And then you'll get a USA Today article with the headline, Tim Walz's military service, 24 years in the National Guard. But of course, that wasn't the USA Today headline. They've just manipulated it and altered it to make it look like it. And yes, there's a little disclaimer that says paid for by Harris for president. But if you're not looking at that, you basically will see all of these results that Kamala Harris's people have paid for to show up at the top of the Google search. So as Axios' Jim Vandehey reports, the Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions within Google search ads to make it appear as if the Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, and other major publishers are on her side, that they've endorsed her. I mean, they are on her side anyway. But this is literally manipulation of web search engines, news results. It's misinformation.
It's misinformation. That's right.
And election meddling.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with it. Google isn't going to do anything about it. And they've been caught red-handed. I have to say, I'm shocked that Axios even found this. But, here's one from Reuters.com. Inflation is down. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the U.S. is winning the inflation fight. And, again, it looks like a Reuters article. It looks like an AP headline.
Yeah.
But it's actually propaganda written by the Harris campaign.
And I think you said it perfectly there. It is misinformation. This is actually, as you say, manipulation of the system, which they are supposed to be outraged about. For goodness sake, they hired somebody at DHS who was subsequently fired and removed because it was so dystopian and creepy. to monitor for this stuff.
Right.
And here they are doing it. That's why it's always projection. When they claim they're concerned about these things, in reality, they're trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Now, she's the reinvention of Kamala Harris, the reintroduction of she's been reintroduced. I think Brian Doherty, our friend Brian Doherty, used to work at Fox, said on social media and sort of caught fire. Kamala Harris has been reintroduced to the American public more often than the McRib sandwich. and now this latest one is, she's just a middle-of-the-road, moderate kind of pragmatic prosecutor. I love that she keeps going back to prosecutor. Pay no attention to what I did or said in the Senate. I'm a prosecutor. Yeah, well, what we have to do is go back, since she isn't talking to anybody except for her scripted ads and scripted events. You have to go back and look at the things she said when she was running for office in 2020. Here's cut 10, where she was trying to run to the left of Bernie Sanders at the time. And here's what she said.
And yeah, I am a radical. I do believe that we need to get radical about what we are doing and take it seriously.
Right. There you go. She's a radical. In her own words, she's a radical. And one of her most radical positions was embracing and even going further to the left, again, of Bernie Sanders, embracing Bernie Sanders' idea of Medicare for all. Medicare for all is socialized medicine.
Yep.
Now, Bernie Sanders' idea of Medicare for all and socialized medicine still allowed for some role for the private insurance companies. She wanted to actually criminalize private health insurance companies. And here she was introducing as a co-sponsor of the bill for Medicare for all. Back in 2019.
And I'm proud to co-sponsor it. It is about saying that this is about a right, not about a privilege for a few. And let's be clear, it is not only about what is the right thing to do morally and ethically. It's also smart in terms of the fiscal impact.
Yeah. By the way, and of course, nobody calls these people out saying, wait a minute, you told us in 2010 that Obamacare was going to fix everything. And now, of course, the healthcare system is terrible. We need solutions for healthcare. Wait, no, you got your chance. You had your solutions. Yeah. No, it's always more.
Well, this is what sorry, go on.
But the reason that we're bringing up Medicare for all is because yesterday the Harris campaign, not Kamala Harris herself, the campaign signaled to reporters who were asking that she is no longer supporting the idea of Medicare for all and socialized medicine. So she sponsored it 5 years ago, and now she says, nope, not interested.
She sponsored it. She said, I'm a radical. She tried to go to the left of Bernie Sanders. But this is the strategy. This is why they're not doing media reports. They're going through her record. They're walking back things that are uncomfortable or that make her look like a radical. And so that when she does sit down and the press sort of gently asks her about this, she can cite the walk back. I'm not for that. No, I'm not for that. So I think that the strategy here is, okay, let's walk back every radical thing she said, and then that will be and then the media will allow that to be her new record. See, it's so simple.
Yeah. Well, we're going to remind you now of 6 major policies that she has reversed herself on. And, of course, she can't be trusted. We know who she is. We know what she actually believes. And as soon as she gets power, she will execute every single radical idea that she's ever held. This is the most radical left-wing presidential ticket the American people have ever had the opportunity to say no to. And we're going to lay those out for you in just a moment. First, though, at 6:15, WMAL traffic and weather. Every 10 minutes, first on the 5s. Jamie Wittens in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Mervis flies to Africa for your diamond so you don't have to. The best value is at Mervis Diamond Importers.
6 policies here. Just 6, but I'm sure there are more. The line over at Washington Examiner who assembled this. Thank you for your hard work. First, we just told you she no longer supports a single-payer healthcare system. She claims no more Medicare for all, even though that was like the centerpiece of her 2020 presidential campaign. A ban on fracking. She said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Now, apparently, there's a question because her campaign has put out a memo saying, no, she's not interested in banning fracking. She had a mandatory gun buyback program. which I love the euphemisms here.
I know.
First of all,
Mandatory gun.
but first of all, it's not a buyback because you didn't purchase the gun from the federal government, but it'll be the federal government buy. So it's not buyback. It's and if it's mandatory, that it's not confiscation. You're just mandated to give us your gun.
Yep.
That's basically what that was. She now says that she's not interested in that. Expanding the Supreme Court, which I love. She was all in favor of expanding the Supreme Court. And in fact, as far as I know, Joe Biden still wants to do that before he leaves office. Joe Biden's still president. Good reminder to all of us. Now she claims that she's not interested in moving forward. At the time, she said, we're on the verge of a crisis of confidence in the Supreme Court. We have to take the challenge head on. Everything's on the table. We're apparently not expanding the Supreme Court. Federal jobs guarantee, which is basically communism. Where the federal government will provide a job to anyone who wants a job. Wait a minute. What about if we need the job done? It doesn't matter if there's actually a job that needs to be done. You'll get a job if you want a job. Defunding the police, of course. She was, right on board with defunding the police. Now she claims she isn't in favor of defunding the police. So that's just 6. But here's what you need to know, as Julie just laid out for you. She's going to do whatever she wants as soon as you give her power. This is what authoritarians do. If you listen to any of her clips from the past when she brags about when she was district attorney or attorney general and how she could use the power of her office to ruin your life, this is what is in her DNA as a politician, as an elected official. And Democrats will constantly lie and deceive and tell you, no, we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to do that. And then, of course, they do it. Julie, remember over the past year, we've talked quite a bit about this move to ban gas stoves, right?
Yeah.
Banning gas stoves. They tried to get the Consumer Protection Agency to do it.
Yep.
They were talking, and we called them out. Don Byer's office, that you got into a giant war with his comms guy.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
All these crazy right-wing.
Yeah. Who called me a conspiracist and a loon and all this other stuff. Yeah.
No one's trying to get rid of gas stoves. No one's trying. We have no intention. There is no proposal. There's no legislation. There's no regulation. No one's touching your gas stoves. It's all fake news. It's all fake news.
It's all in your head. You're all crazy.
That's right. Let me read you the headline from the Daily Caller. Biden administration cements gas stove rule after insisting it isn't going after gas stoves.
Yep.
The Energy Department yesterday announced that they are changing rules that will effectively ban gas stoves.
And sorry, I know that this is a little hobby horse of mine, but I got to say it will not ban gas stoves for everyone, because there will of course be this sort of out, which is if you have the insanely expensive hood that you put over your stove that, sucks out whatever harmless particulates they claim cause all these diseases, then, you get a pass, which that means rich people. Okay. There'll also be some sort of caveat in there that, like, restaurants, but not just any restaurant, like big restaurant, chain restaurants, right? They'll get their carve out so that they don't have to switch over to induction or to electric. There'll be all these carve outs, right? You mentioned that Tim Walz allowed big box stores to open, but, closed mom and pop shops. This is the kind of cozy relationship they're going to have with these big restaurants, that they get a carve out, but the little mom and pop shop has to switch over to a method of cooking that does not produce food the way you want it. And homeowners, all new buildings, like, they're going to get in with these home builders associations, and they're going to make sure that home builders do not put in gas stoves. It's all going to be this cozy kind of wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Don Byer and Kamala Harris, because Kamala likes to brag that she's a good cook, they'll have their gas stoves. Just not you. Just not you.
Yeah, Daily Caller lays it out for you. The Biden administration locked in a gas stove rule on Monday after insisting that it's not trying to ban gas stoves, rejecting efforts by opposed organizations to nix the rule. Department of Energy's efficiency rule for gas stoves, announced in January, will come into effect as expected in January 28, according to a Monday entry in the Federal Register. The finalized rule is less stringent than a 2023 proposal that was subsequently abandoned, and nuance in the rulemaking process allowed for the agency to walk back parts of the regulation if it received a significant volume of negative public comments on the docket. But the DOE has gone ahead with its rule over the objections of several Republican state attorneys general and advocacy groups, including Competitive Enterprise Institute. The DOE rolled out the rule as a direct final rulemaking, meaning that there was no published proposal for the policy. According to E&E News, the direct final rulemaking process has allowed for groups like CEI to leave comments about the rule with a chance of getting the agency to water down the rule. So there you go. I mean, they're moving forward with this rule. And then again, this is camel nose under the tent. Now they're regulating the gas stoves even further, and this will eventually lead to a ban because they hate gas stoves because they don't like you to be happy.
Right. Well, this is a perfect example of executive power run amok. This is bureaucratic insanity. This is this fourth branch of government that needs which the Trump administration wants to take on and say, Congress needs to enact these laws. Congress needs to set laws. Congress needs to start down the path of regulating certain products. Agencies shouldn't be able to just go in and ban things and take things.
But they do it from the executive branch. And so we'll go back to our list of 6 things. Ban on fracking, single-payer health system, expanding the Supreme Court, federal jobs guarantee, defunding police, and confiscation of guns and a buyback program. She says she's not for them. And then when she gets power, just like they say they weren't touching your gas stoves, and now then they get power, this is what they'll do. So buyer beware. 623.
Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:36 now, this very busy Wednesday morning as we plow forward on a crazy news cycle, heading into your weekend. Coming up at 7:05, Tim Graham of Newsbusters will join us to talk about the media a bit. And an unintentional laugh line on Stephen Colbert yesterday that was just brilliant, actually. The funniest Stephen Colbert's ever been when he tried to say that CNN doesn't take sides in their reporting. And the audience couldn't help themselves. It was a great laugh line, unintentionally. 8:05, Phil Wegman will join us from Real Clear Politics. And at 8:35, Josh Crashauer. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
We're with Cal Thomas now, as we always are at this time on Wednesdays, because we are the luckiest radio show in America. He, of course, is syndicated columnist. Find his columns at Washington Times. Good morning, Cal.
Good morning to you, Larry and Julie. You're doing your usual excellent job this early in the morning.
It's very kind of you to say. Tell me about the DNC coming up this week. It's going to be pretty remarkable. I'm sorry. I know that it's old news now, but I'm still having trouble getting over how they've been able to engineer this and just sort of move Biden aside and put Kamala in. And now we're going to have this Democratic National Convention as if this is the most normal thing in America.
What's really interesting about this is they've got so many of the old guard. They've got both Clintons, Bill and Hillary. They've got Obama, and then they got Harris, who's supposed to be the future. And then they're going to have the demonstrators, which is always, problematic, as it was in 1968, which ruined that convention, the anti-war demonstrators, and helped elect Richard Nixon. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing this time, but they're promising the Palestinians, the pro-Palestinians, the anti-Jewish, the anti-Semitic crowd are promising tens of thousands of people showing up there, which, of course, the media, which loves this kind of thing, will be featuring and may overwhelm what's actually going on the convention floor.
Cal, I just said a few minutes ago, and I kind of love your thoughts on this, that, the strategy here, and it looks like this is, I promise I was not not plagiarizing what Byron York, far smarter analyst than I, was saying, that the strategy here is to just be quiet. And not say anything. And I went on to say, I think that what the strategy here is, she's slowly reversing all of her stated positions, right? She's not for Medicaid for all. She's not for, all of these policies, fracking, what have you. She's reversing them slowly so that when she is ready to sit down, she can say, oh, well, that's not my position now. I mean, is this going to work? And will we know the left-wing media is not going to really question her, but will there be any aggressive questions by anyone in the media about the record that she's now abandoned?
Well, only if they can get to her. The Biden basement strategy worked for him, and this is her version of it. I'm not sure if you can't get to her, if you can't do an interview other than on The View or CNBC or on MSNBC, then you're not really going to get any information from her. People change their minds, people change their views, but they have to have a reason for doing so. This is clearly a political reason. It has nothing to do with their real beliefs. And it is a follow-up to what Biden did. He presented himself as a moderate, as a uniter, as somebody to bring the country together. And then when he gets elected, he governs as the furthest left-wing president we have ever had. So the Trump campaign, which I hope will include some of these things, is spending $100 million in these swing states to try to point some of these things out. And I hope they do, because, conversion is a wonderful thing, but it's got to be legitimate, and it's not with her.
Well, but Cal, this all stems from the media relinquishing their responsibility to sort of be, at least at the very to attempt to show some impartiality and to sort of directly report matters to the American people and hold elected officials accountable. They always had a bias. They always had their thumb on the scale. But after Trump, they openly said, yeah, we got to reinvent the way we go about this because we can't let Trump win again. And so, Listen, Kamala Harris ain't stupid. Joe Biden, they're not stupid. They know that the media is on their side. They know that ultimately the media is not going to do anything that will end up helping Trump. So why should she sit for an interview? Why should she submit herself to any questioning?
That's right. Well, as long as the polls are in her favor, she may not. When I started out as a copy boy at NBC News in Washington, where real journalists practiced what was then called a profession, a trade, the great David Brinkley once said, it's my favorite quote, "It's impossible to be objective, so we must try to be fair." I think that ought to be over every newsroom door in the country. Try to be fair regardless of what your views are, and that's what serves the public.
Cal, your column this week, you reflected quite a bit on the anti-Semitic protests that we saw on college campuses, but interestingly, and I think quite sobering, you focused not just on those universities, but on an elementary school in our backyard here, the Bethesda Elementary School, and graffiti that appeared there.
I went to a Bethesda elementary school. We didn't have anything like that. I went to Montgomery County High School, graduated from there. We didn't have anything like that. Oh, we went over and painted the driveway of BCC just before a football game, but that was about it. I mean, we didn't do anything major. Or maybe they did that to us. Yeah, we set off their fire alarm in a rainstorm. That's what we did. But, it wasn't anything major. But this is sick stuff. I mean, these are the anti-Semitic, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel people that now think elementary schools are a good target. What, drag queen story time wasn't enough for them?
Thank you, Cal. Great to talk with you as always. We will check in with you midway through the Democratic National Convention next week. It should be something else.
Well, it should be fun.
All right, thank you, Cal.
Talk to you later.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
You know, Julie, how I lament the loss of comedy in our lives and entertainment in our lives, and specifically late-night comedy. I used to love, yes, I'm going to sound old, I used to love Johnny Carson.
Of course.
Johnny Carson to David Letterman was probably the best part of my life as a teenager, being able to stay up, and watch those two back-to-back while
Larry,
I should be studying.
I've actually, just very quickly, I've actually shown my kids some of the old clips of Johnny Carson and Letterman. And the thing my oldest noted was, he goes, my goodness, there's no politics. It's just funny and entertainment.
That's right.
He's grown up in an era where it's nothing but politics. So he was kind of shocked. Right.
Absolutely. And so that's why I'm very pleased to report to you that comedy has returned to the Late Show on CBS. Yeah. We had a really funny moment with Stephen Colbert. Think about the poor audience, by the way. The audience is pretty much tourists, people who are in New York, a lot of out-of-towners, a lot of people from foreign countries. Like, you get to watch a live television show in the U.S. So you stand in line, you get your tickets, you sit down, you spend your whole day in New York watching this comedy show. And here's our number one guest, Caitlin Collins of CNN. Like, oh my God, what the hell? I couldn't get Tom.
They're expecting Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, Tom Cruise,
Winslet,
maybe.
Yeah,
they
get Caitlin Collins.
Caitlin Collins. See, not even Anderson Cooper. Caitlin Collins. So anyway, she's giving this ridiculous observation about how, the Trump has got. Here, the Trump campaign just doesn't really know how to handle Kamala Harris because, she's such a transcendent figure.
Trump has kind of been thrown on his heels by this, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris. He knew his attack lines on President Biden. He really has struggled with how to go after someone who's 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race. It's kind of been this moment where he has not been able to coalesce around a single attack line.
That's just such vacuous analysis.
But Larry, Maggie Haberman made this, crazy lefty Maggie Haberman made the same point on CNN last night. This is the latest talking point.
So they're all repeating themselves.
Yes,
they don't know what to do with her.
Right. He's totally baffled by her.
All right, fine. Well, that's actually not the funny part. I mean, it's funny that Caitlin Collins has a job that pays her 7 figures to give that kind of analysis to the CNN audience. CNN, I could help you fix that network in a month. Just give me a call.
Honestly.
It's so
wouldn't it be great to just have talking points? Just you get up, you read your talking points, you go home.
All right, so then Stephen Colbert changes the conversation and tries to set up this. So just listen. This is the funniest thing you'll ever hear.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No, I know. CNN makes a... I know
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is. What up?
How fantastic is that?
It's so great because everyone knows.
Yes.
Right? Everyone knows.
Even his audience.
There's Colbert. He's being, and I wish you could see it because he's being completely earnest.
Oh, yeah.
He's being completely serious.
100% sincere setup.
He is not.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No,
I love
know.
this.
CNN makes a... I know.
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
Yeah, and then Caitlin's like, "Wait a minute, what? That wasn't." Yes,
why are you laughing at CNN?
And the funny thing is, no, it wasn't supposed to be a laugh line. Colbert says that completely earnestly. He's being completely respectful and kind of giving her a little bit of like, "Hey, you guys are like the real news, right?"
Yeah.
And then the
By the
audience
way,
just dies.
Caitlin's origin story is she was hired as an unknown college kid by a guy named Tucker Carlson for a website called The Daily Caller.
Yeah,
that's where she got her first job. That's where she learned the trade, learned the business. In fact, worked under an editor-in-chief named Vince Colonnese.
Wow.
She knows that it's a laugh line. She knows better. That's the thing. It's like, honestly, I'm most disappointed about Caitlin. I don't expect much from Jake Tapper. I don't expect much from Wolf Blitzer. I don't expect much from Anderson Cooper. Caitlin Collins knows better. And you can almost hear it in her voice when this happens.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No, I know. CNN makes a... I know.
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is. What up?
Scott Bertram, who he's a professor over at Hillsdale College in the journalism department there, and he does like broadcasting and podcasting. He's an old radio hand. He made a brilliant observation. Stephen Colbert's entire career up until this show, he used to do on Comedy Central, he used to do a parody of an ultra right-wing conservative show, like Bill O'Reilly sort of thing, right?
Yep.
The Colbert Report, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And he would satire a right-wing conservative host. It was always so over the top, right?
Right.
But that was his shtick, and people would laugh at it. Scott Bertram says he's now doing a parody of a hyper-left opinion show on a nightly basis, but he isn't in on the joke. He doesn't actually know that. But it is what he does every night, and he's doing it in a sincere way. In his mind, he's being sincere and earnest. But it is such an over-the-top parody of like a Rachel Maddow show or a Chris Hayes or Lawrence O'Donnell show that it has become a parody unto itself. And so when he says something like that...
Objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. Oh, I know. CNN makes a... I know.
The audience thinks he's making a joke. They think it's part of the shtick.
Yes.
And it's not. And that's how bad it's gotten over there. But listen, Stephen and the writers over there, even though you didn't actually work for this one, thanks for the laughs. It's great to have humor back in late night again. Beautiful. Keep it up. It's 6:53.